everyone, welcome to the new video. So I got this comment on my last video that the DevOps interview questions that I shared um, for the government contract based job, that please share the answers for this too. So today I'm making video on that only. And there was one more question regarding that, how are you getting calls? So this I'm going to address in my next video for sure. So stay tuned. So without further ado, let's start today's video. So yeah. So first question is, explain Kubernetes architecture. So I started with that Kubernetes follow a master slave architecture where there are there is a control plane or control node, then there are worker nodes. uh, then I started with the components of the control node, that there is first the API manager. So for the communication that is happening, Kubernetes use API. So all the communication through API is handled by API manager. We request API manager, and that's what when we get the response back. Then we have etcd. It's like a database which store the information of the pods, everything in a key value pair, whether the pod is running or it is not running, it is crashed or something. Then we have scheduler, which will decide which will schedule the pod based on the information present in etcd. It will look. And then we have the control manager. So control manager are like there for every resource, like deployment replica set. So basically, if anything is wrong, control managers are the one which try to bring stability in that. Then moving to the worker node, we have kubelet, we have kubeproxy. So what all communication is happening from worker node to the control node, it's done through kubelet. Kubeproxy is managing the networking inside the worker node. So this is how I explain. Then regarding the second question, do you know the types of APIs? So I said there are, like, what I know about the APIs, like we hit the APIs and we get the response back with status 200, 400, like this. And we have a method like get, post, put, and we hit the URL. We have to pass the headers, we have to pass body, and accordingly we'll get the response. Now the third question was, at which layer ingress work at? So I said it works at layer 7. Then in which cloud you're comfortable in? I said I have worked on AWS and Azure, but the AWS I'm more comfortable in. So next question was, if you have to create EKS cluster privately, like everything should be private, then how will you create it from scratch? So first of all, there should be a VPC. Inside the VPC, there should be subnet, there should be public and private subnet. I'll prefer the private subnet because they specifically mention about the private word. Then I'll use the NAT gateway, or you can use the, if you want to provide, if you don't want to use public, if you like, we can use endpoint also, but the architecture will change. We'll establish a endpoint so that there is a tunnel created between the AWS services and the user who is trying to access. Then the changes will be done on the security groups, the route tables. Then I need to create the IAM role for creating the worker nodes, because the master node is managed by the like the AWS only. So there are IAM roles to be attached, like EKS, container policy, then worker node policy, CNI policy, like this I have to attach. Then I will create it will create the auto scaling group, and I have to mention the replicas, min and max replicas. So accordingly the pods will be getting created. So in EC2 instances we will see. So next question was, how Docker communicate with Kubernetes? So there is containerd, which helps in the communication. The types of networks in Docker, there is host networking, like which the Docker containers will use host port, and for the, it will share the host for the network for the communication. We have bridge, we can create custom networks also, and we can connect the containers with that custom network, and we can use that. Then what is API gateway? API gateway is basically, it is placed so that whenever the HTTP request hit, so according to the request we can route the traffic behind. Like if a particular API URL is triggered, then at which service it should go and get the result. Now how traffic flows when we configure load balancer. So there are target groups created behind. So basically round robin algorithm is used, but there are more ways which I was not able to tell. So this question, basically I need to check more, okay, so that I'll get more understanding, and I'll surely share it with you guys. Now, have you worked on databases? Which I told, yes, I've worked on PostgreSQL, yes, MySQL. Difference between drop and truncate. So drop deletes full table, like nothing is left, no structure, nothing. But truncate, what it does, it will delete all the data inside the table, but the name of the like the column names, the headers will be remained, the structure will be there intact. Now, have you worked on Kafka or any data structure? So I said, yes, I have worked on, but I haven't configured it. I know it follows a pub sub method where publishers are like, there is a queue and kind of messages which come, so that how the queue handles it. Like it handles the messages, like when, what are the incoming messages, what are ready, what can be processed. So like this, so that I told. Then how will you configure alerting for monitoring when threshold is breached? So I can use AWS SNS, and whenever the threshold is reached, I can configure, there can be a lambda function, AWS lambda function, which can trigger, or there can be, like this SNS, the notification system, but basically there should be some function that should trigger the notifications out. And what is PV and PVC? So PV is a volume that is created from the storage class, and PVC is a claim that we make to the volume, that this much request of memory on CPU I need. And command to run Ansible playbook, Ansible hyphen playbook hyphen F, and whatever is the playbook file path, okay, hyphen V for verbose. And command to enter inside, that is kubectl exec hyphen it, then the pod name, and if we are need to enter into a particular container, then the container name hyphen n, and then the namespace name, then hyphen hyphen, then slash bin slash bash, so the shell name. Then command to list all namespaces in cluster, we have kubectl get ns hyphen a, we can do. What is AWS S3? So S3 is a storage where we store the objects. It should be globally unique. The name should be globally unique. It is used for hosting the static website. We get a URL which we try to hit, and get the objects if we want to get. We can manage access as well. So it is used for storing objects, like the data in the form of objects, okay. Then how will you debug application error like 500? So basically I will check what are the logs, what got changed recently, and I will try to debug the recent changes, and will try to find out that what can be the error. Is it even a memory issue or something, or is it even some other issue related to configuration? So what is difference between application logs or system logs? System logs are basically on which our application is running, and application is basically the code, or through which our application is running, okay. So how will you debug Jenkins pipeline failure? We need to check the logs in the console output, where it is failing for some agent unavailability, it is failing for some plugin, it's failing for some dependency, it's failing for some credentials. Accordingly we will work. Then what is multi-stage Docker file? Multi-stage Docker file, it's like, to reduce the Docker image size, we use multi-stage, where one block will be creating something, and it will be used in another. block. Okay, so there are two from inputs in that. And then, have you worked on any agentic AI? So I said I haven't worked on agentic AI. Like, I've used Copilot, but I haven't worked on configuring it, and I have used AIs for creating the Helm charts and all, but I haven't worked on the backend code. So these were all my answers. I hope it's helpful. So please let me know if I am incorrect somewhere or you want to add on something. That will be very helpful. So yeah. So that's all for today's video. I hope it's helpful. Please let me know your views in the comment section. Till then, take care. Bye.